The West Loop might be a great place to live, but today we're going to talk about 10 reasons why you might want to avoid this place. So stick around. What's up, guys? My name is Tony. I'm a real estate agent here in the West Loop. And if you're interested in what it's like to live, play, work, eat, or move to this area, then this is the channel for you. If this sounds like you, do me a favor, hit the subscribe and the bell so you never miss a video when we release it. And today, like I said, we're talking about the 10 things you might want to know before you move here. I'm not saying these are bad things, but they're things to be aware of. Now, I'm a local here, I live in the area, I've been here for a long time, so some of these things are just second nature, you don't even think about them. But for some people, they can be a jarring change to their normal day-to-day life. So first, let's start talking about demographics. It is nearly 50-50 men and women, which is pretty remarkable, but it's our young professional crowd. The median age is like 30 years old, so you're thinking like, young professional, people who are just starting to get going in their career. That's typically the vibe there. So if you're fresh out of college, or if you're a little bit older, think about that and what your neighbors are going to be like and the types of lives they live compared to what you are. And when I'm saying, right out of college, we're going to talk about cost in a second, but they tend to have a little bit more money than you, so just keep that in mind. Number two, let's talk about housing. Housing in the West Loop is very expensive. It's one of the most expensive parts of the city. I'll actually link a video right here of a recent tour I just did of a 3-bedroom that's listed just over $1 million, and it's not unusual. It's a very normal property in the West Loop. That being said, a lot of the properties are much newer, built this century, which for Chicago standards is very new. A lot of the buildings have a lot of amenities, so you're talking amenity-rich facilities. So they're catering to a younger crowd that has a little bit more money that wants conveniences. That's the style you're going to get here. So you're paying for what you get. And we cannot talk about housing without talking about parking too. Parking in the West Loop is really expensive. A lot of these buildings will have parking facilities included in upwards of, in some cases, $300 for a single spot. So it wouldn't be surprised if you came here, decided you no longer needed a car, because in the West Loop, everything is pretty walking distance to begin with. The whole area is about less than a half of a square mile. So you can really get around very easily, whether it's on foot, on a bike, on a scooter. So cars are not necessary, but if you do need a car for work or something like that, be prepared to pay a premium for it. Because parking is expensive at properties and it goes very quickly on the street. Not to mention, sometimes there are street festivals or, farmers markets, things like that attract a lot more people from outside of the area. And street parking just doesn't exist at that point in time. So good luck. Off of parking, let's talk about traffic. Now, I'm a real estate broker, which means that I have to get around the city a lot. And I live just south of the West Loop. And going from the south of the West Loop through the West Loop to the north side, like if we're going to go to Lincoln Park or something like that, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a workday is the bane of my existence. It gets bottlenecked and gridlocked so fast. It's like out of nowhere, millions of cars descend on one little street. But going through Chicago's infrastructure is not very friendly. So it could get pretty brutal there, and not to mention because of the West Loop's location, after normal work hours, I should say, the entrances into 90 are just awful. Avoid at all costs. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I could not recommend avoiding them anymore. They're so bad. Okay, next let's talk about the workforce. Who are the types of people that are working in the West Loop? Aside from your typical service industry jobs, most of the employers in the area think big tech, big data, large corporations. McDonald's has a massive headquarters there. There's the Google headquarters, Twitter, LinkedIn. A lot of tech companies have their headquarters or main corporate regional offices in the West Loop, because it attracts a lot of that type of degree. Tech, data, sciences, things of that nature. So yeah, you have a lot of high-earning jobs, which is part of the reason why housing is expensive, things like that, because the people in the area have more disposable income than other parts of the city. Not to mention, the Illinois Medical District is literally a quarter mile away, so that attracts a lot of doctors, a lot of people in the medical field, which are also higher-earning careers too. So in a very small area of Chicago, half of a mile, you have a ton of high-earning professionals. So to be clear, I think that those are all really good things. I just think that you should be aware of them before you move to the area, because if you're somebody coming right out of college and maybe you're not prepared to go head to toe on housing with a doctor making $150,000 a year. So all good things, but they're just things to be aware of. I have my relocation guide right below that you could get in the comments. You could just download it right below in the description or comments, wherever it is. And you can learn a lot more about this than what I'm going into this video. This is just high level. One of my biggest gripes with the West Loop is the lack of city amenities. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of great restaurants. There's a lot of things like that. But I love the lake. Chicago has an amazing waterfront, and there's really no good access to it in the West Loop. Not to mention, the 606 trail is great. Not really any access to the 606 either from the West Loop. For everything that the West Loop has going for it, it really doesn't have great access to bike paths or the lakefront or public parks. Yeah, we do have some parks, which we'll get into in a second, but for the most part, it's really a concrete jungle. So let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about the parks. Chicago has some great parks. Lincoln Park is an enormous, beautiful park that spans from Lincoln Park, the area, all the way through, I don't exactly know where the upper edge of it is, but it definitely goes through Uptown. Chicago has some great parks, and the West Loop basically has 5. There are 5 major green spaces in the West Loop, with Union Park being the largest, Skinner Park being the second largest, and then there's a few other ones kind of scattered around, but otherwise it really is a concrete jungle, like I said. However, a lot of the high-rise and professionally managed buildings, remember how I said earlier in the video, amenity rich, a lot of them have green spaces or, dog walks, dog runs, things like that on their roofs, on their lower levels, wherever their amenities are. And like I said, you could get my relocation guide, which has overviews of all the rental buildings in the area. So if you're not living in one of those buildings, you're really limited to where you're getting your green space or where you're just getting outside into nature. Guys, if you are liking this video so far, do me a favor, hit the like button. Just let me know that you're watching this so I can, continue to make videos like this to educate and stuff like that. But let's keep going. I'm probably gonna get some hate for this one, but I'm gonna say it anyways. I think that the West Loop kind of has a lack of personality. I think that Chicago has so much character and personality all throughout the city, through our architecture and through our design and through so many elements just littered around the city of our past. The West Loop really doesn't have that. I'm going to use the word again, but concrete jungle. I mean, it's a lot of glass skyscrapers, a lot of the same. And when I say that, I mean, like, if you drop yourself somewhere in the West Loop, you'd immediately know it was the West Loop and not any other part of the city. It doesn't have the charm that Lincoln Park has. It doesn't have the diversity that somewhere like Andersonville has. It is just the West Loop. So I might get hate for that, but hey, I'm sticking to my guns. I think that the West Loop has some of the most basic personality in all of Chicago. So, and I'm gonna piggyback off of that and talk about our next point, which is the food. So I think the West Loop has, swear to God, some of the best food in the city of Chicago. But there are hundreds of restaurants and a lot of them suck. A lot of them just feel like they were popped up to mirror another restaurant that did something really, really good and just falls flat. And they're all very expensive restaurants too. So I think that the West Loop can really elevate itself by bringing some more interesting food options that are not just all stuffy, in your face kind of copycats of something else that did really good. So, sue me, I don't know what to tell you. Like I said, some of my favorite restaurants are still in the West Loop. I'll make another video on that, but what are you gonna do? So before we get into our last point, I'm gonna ask one last time, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and here we go, ethnic areas. The West Loop used to have some really great ethnic areas, primarily Greektown. I am of Greek heritage. When I was a kid, I marched in the Greek parade, so it was a special place to me, but over the past 30 years of my life, even Greektown has sort of drifted into a shadow of what it once was. And not far away is Little Italy. Not technically the West Loop, but very close still. And again, just a shell of what it once was. Driving through these areas, you see remnants of what they were, but they really lack the cultural punch that you would expect. It kind of folds into the basicness of what I was talking about earlier. And that's something that, really upsets me, and I think it upsets a lot of people in the city too, that would like to have more ethnic areas, because all throughout Chicago, a lot of our ethnic areas are definitely drifting away as what was once, our immigrant grandparents coming here. Well, now we're several generations removed. That, to be expected, that happens over time. It's still a shame though, and I wish there was something that was preserving those communities just a little bit better. But that being said, Greektown is still fun. The Greek Parade is still a good time. You should check it out if you haven't been. But there are better Greek restaurants in other parts of the city. So if you enjoyed this video or found it informational at all, let me know. Give me some feedback. I'd love to hear what you think about it. And thanks again for watching. Have a great day. Signing off.